Welcome to TheGaGG.com. I'm Luke Stevens, your head gun and gear guy. This series is Glockology101. Yes, I said Glockology. I've made up that term for this series. We're going to use the 101 series to inform the basic user on the general care, maintenance, activities, and cleaning that is associated with the Glock. Future series, 201s, maybe 202s, who knows, we'll number them some way, are gonna represent more advanced topics that range from customization to actually gunsmithing on the Glock. This video today is the basic introduction to the Glock and the nomenclature of the pistol and the Glock specifically. So let's get started. First thing, you'll see in front of me a series of Glocks. We're going to talk about them and walk through them, but let me give you a little bit of the history of the Glock. The Glock is an amazing pistol. It arose on the kind of firearms world in the 1980s, 1990s. It's out of a country in Austria, Glock, and they had come up with a gun that was revolutionary at the time because it included plastic. Now we can refer to it as polymer, but it was plastic. And everybody then had metal guns. So everybody thought that gun is a toy. Well, Glock went a step further and they took these guns and they put them through what is now the industry standard torture test. They dumped these guns in water, they put them in sand, they rode trucks over them, they froze them in blocks of ice, and guess what? These Glocks shot, and these Glocks shot thousands of rounds after these torture tests. So the Glock is a very robust and proven firearm for self-defense, tactical, and other purposes. Personally, I wasn't enamored with the Glock when I started shooting them. I am a big proponent of the Glock today, not necessarily because the firearms improved or changed, but because I realized what you have when you have a Glock is actually a weapons system. Because of the wide variety of components out there that you can get to add to your Glock, as well as the ease of gunsmithing the Glock platform, you can essentially build the Glock that you want and turn what is normally just a pistol into actually a weapons platform. We'll see a little bit of that today with the Glocks that we have here. So we have an assortment of Glocks. I wanted to kind of show you one of the first things that any Glock buyer or user finds is there's a diversity of numbering. At first, my brain was about to bust when I was trying to figure out the Glock numbering. The Glock 17 is a 9mm. The Glock 23 is a 40. It didn't make any sense. And finally, when I read an article one day, I realized what the numbers mean. The original Glock was the Glock 17. It's not based on the fact that it held 17 rounds, which a lot of people believe. It's actually based on the fact that it was issued at the time that they received their 17th international patent. So they called it the Glock 17. Pretty random, huh? Well, from that, as they added guns to their inventory in this Glock series, they just numbered them sequentially. Today we're, I think, at the Glock 39, or maybe, well, actually we're at the Glock 43, I think, today. And essentially what you've seen is as they've added a caliber or a different variation of the Glock in the same caliber, they've just numbered it in that. And there's really been no sequence in terms of calibers or the frame styles that matches a pattern. You typically see, when they release a 9mm, they'll release the different frame styles around that 9mm time frame. Similarly with a 40 or a 45, they kind of do. So the numbers are a little bit around each other, but toward the end of the numbering range, it gets a little funky. Now, generally, you can find the Glock in essentially three frames. The frame being, in the case of the Glock, the lower part of the gun, and we'll talk about that nomenclature in a minute. This is actually the Glock 17. This is a Generation 4 Glock 17, so this is the original model. Now, the frames come in three sizes: subcompact, compact, and full size. The frames, essentially for the same frame style, will support slides of different models. So I can actually take most of the time, and I say most of the time, it's not consistent, I can take a Generation G17 frame, and as long as I'm using the G17, I can put, for instance, the G34 slide on it because it's the same lower half. We'll talk about that more in a minute. This is a G17. It's a 9mm. It's in their full-size frame, but it's not the full-size model of the 9mm they have. They actually have, as we'll see in a minute, the 34 and 35 series, which are a more full-size based on the same frame. This one is the Glock 35 Gen 4. The Glock 35 Gen 4 is the full size, but this is in a 40, of this same base frame that you see down here. Okay? And as you can see, this is the base gun. There's been no frills, no any changes to it. And this one, I've actually made some minor adaptations that I would say generally any person who's going to do this as self-defense, I put some self-defense sights on it and a little bit of a trigger job. These two guns right here are .45 caliber guns. This is a 21, and I'm sorry, this is a 40 and this is a .45. This is a Glock 21 and this is a Glock 22. The 22 is similar to the 17 except different calibers. So see, there's that crazy numbering: 17, 22, 9mm, 40 caliber. All right, and then you have the 45 in roughly the same frame size here. Now, this is a good example of what Glock guns are and are not. We have here the 17 I showed you a minute ago. This is the base gun. Nothing's been changed on this gun. We have here, while not a 9mm, a model that I've taken and I've added a custom barrel, sights, I've put different magazine releases, I've put mag wells on it, I have extended magazines for it, I've added my own backstrap, internally there are various parts. So this is why I say Glocks are this unique weapon that you can highly customize. Now, I'm not saying in any way, shape, or form there are not other guns out there. But for the price point and for generally the availability of parts, it's been hard to find a gun to beat it. So let's go through a little bit of general nomenclature about any Glock and guns in general. The lower part of the gun, which has the pistol grip on it, and the trigger housing, and this part of the frame, is called the frame, and sometimes it's called the receiver. The top part here is the slide. Now, some people mistakenly, because they're used to ARs, will call both of these the receiver, or call both of these upper receiver, lower receiver. With a pistol, that's not a proper nomenclature. This part is the slide. If you open the gun up, you can see the barrel. This is the ejection port where bullets are going to come out. You have on this side of the gun, you have the slide release, which right now is locking the gun. Notice I have no hands on it. When I engage that, the gun will move forward. You have the magazine release. You have the magazine well. You have the trigger. And inside here, you really couldn't see it that well. See if I can get it right here. You might be able to see it right there. We'll see it in the assembly and disassembly. Is actually the slide spring or the recoil spring. Depends on whether you're old school or not. And then you have a rear sight and a front sight. Now, a few other terms that you probably need to know if you're going to be around pistols. We talked about the trigger. This is considered the trigger guard or the trigger housing, depending upon where you're from. This is considered the backstrap of the gun. The backstrap is very important because people that have big hands like me, that's the only place we can actually modify the grip of the gun so that our fingers don't wrap around and touch our wrist on the other side when we're trying to shoot. Now that's the general nomenclature of the Glock. In the next series, we're going to show you how to properly assemble and disassemble a Glock. I'm Luke Stevens, your head gun and gear guy here at TheGaGG.com.